We're here with Dr. Julia Balén, author of A Queerly Joyful Noise. Dr. Balén, what first made you decide to write a book on LGBT choruses and the notion of creating social change through music?
I was standing in a crowd at the GALA festival in Tampa in 1996, and I had been singing with my little chorus, Desert Voices, for 14 years or something. No, it had only been about 7 years by then. And I realized that this was a huge group of people, and at the time especially, it was sort of surprising because I had been to big pride festivals and all, but this really rivaled it, and we sang for each other for 9 days, and it was an amazing experience. And you know, along with that, I had always thought I was a little strange that I liked choruses this much, especially given that I'm not particularly religious. And so this was a secular group obviously, and openly out about their sexuality and, celebrating that in this sort of format that was very formal, really. And proper. And so here were all these queers being very proper, but improperly proper. It was queer. So I wanted to explore that.
In your book, you use the term counterstory to describe how choruses create a narrative that rebuts some of the assumptions in our culture about LGBT people. Can you describe that concept a bit, please?
Yes, counterstorying it's important to understand that all of us, our identities are made up of stories. And these stories are a constant process to develop and to maintain. And we are developing them in relationship to each other at all times. So in any interaction, there's a story going on about what roles we play, how we play them well or badly. And so our identities are shaped by these stories. But for those of us for whom the stories we're given and told we are don't fit us in one way or another, the master narratives, the main stories a society sort of encourages and supports, don't work. And so when the stories that are being told about us, our sense of ourselves, are effectively lies, we have to counter those stories in some way. And that's no easy process. And one of the things that we've certainly seen is with backlash, we see how powerful those stories are when they get challenged. When they've been, in a sense, backlash is a sign that we've been successful, right? Because the people whose stories are then made uncomfortable in some way come back to fight back. And it's that challenge that we have to take up, but take it up in a way that allows for a broader range of storying, allows space for people to find healthier ways to be with each other. And therein lies the challenge. And this is part of the role that the choruses play that's quite effective, really, partly because of the form that choral musicking as a practice takes. So choral musicking is like already a social form that allows for certain storying practices, and within that form we're able to shift the stories because no story happens in a vacuum. Any counter story has to build off of other stories or shift them slightly, and a lot of what the work the choruses do is play with that.
Do you have a view on how queer choruses could better serve their missions of creating change through the power of music?
Yes. In fact, I hope the book offers a lot of that, a lot through just analysis and insight about what the choruses are up to now. And they do a lot of good work already. And there's sort of there's several, but the two important pieces to this. One is that the choruses create a space of nurturing and healthy identity support within them to greater and lesser extents. There's people who, certainly I interviewed who weren't held in their identities well at that time by their choruses. And so that choruses can do that practice well or badly, just as we as individuals can. And understanding that process and the power of that process as an ongoing practice, I think will help the choruses, I hope will help the choruses to think well about how they could be more effective. Because inevitably, when we take up other stories, there's an element of reinscribing the master narrative stories to some degree or another. So the better we analyze how we're storying, the better we can bring other people up with us, as well as ourselves, within the social storying processes.
Last question. How do we counterstory the current climate of intolerance and fear?
That is not an easy question to answer, of course. But the counterstorying process that this movement started with was in the face of the backlash of the 80s. And that backlash was, while different, very similar, and I would say the current day is an outgrowth of that same energy, where people who felt challenged by civil rights and women's rights and LGBT rights coming to the fore, there was huge backlash. And then the AIDS crisis happened, and the choruses really were a place of healing as well as a place of challenging those stories, at least within us. The counterstorying happens on lots of levels. I mean, for social change to happen, people have to change, and their own sense of themselves has to change. And so those inner stories get nurtured into healthier stories, and that's one level. And then the mutual group stories become slowly, hopefully, healthier stories. And hopefully that then creates a counter story that's strong enough to hold up against the backlash that is inevitable when a group is successful, because there are people out there for whom their identities feel threatened in any time change happens. None of us take to change that easily. So it's a process, and understanding it as a long-term process, as opposed to, it's more evolutionary rather than revolutionary, though there's revolutionary potential within it.
Thank you, Dr. Balén. Congratulations on the publication of A Queerly Joyful Noise.
Thank you so much.